In Isaiah 58, we have a passage that talks about the people fasting and trying to get God to notice them, trying to do something that would secure God's blessing and even, appropriate his power in their life. And so he questions their motives. And this is always, something that fasting is supposed to produce is a purity of heart and a right motive. And so he questions that. And I want to look at this passage. I think it has a lot to do with just even how we are to approach giving. And not that we would always have the right heart, not that we would always have the most pure of motives, but that's what God is after, that we would be able to kind of be pushed aside, and even the way that we would do something or expect something in return, whether from God or somebody else, and receive the opportunity to just be a blessing, for God to be a blessing through us. And we hear a lot about oppression lately, and, to satisfy and come rescue the needs of the poor and the oppressed and the underprivileged, and, those who seem marginalized in our society. And this is also a passage that champions the plight of the oppressed. And so I want to start this little section with singing a part of it. And it says here, if you do away with oppression, if you do away with oppression, pointing of the finger, and if you satisfy the needs of the oppressed, afflicted, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your room will be as the noonday sun. And the promise is that the Lord will guide you continually and satisfy you in a sun-scorched land and make your bones strong. And you'll be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. What a beautiful picture of the promise of God to, not only meet us in a place where we champion the cause of the poor and the oppressed, but, we have a heart, the right heart, the kind of heart that God gives us to want to, look at and notice the need around us. And, this is no less at this time of year, that there are needs of people all around us, and we can try to bring up their cause to God. We can try to lift up their heart and, be one who champions the voice and the heart of those who are underprivileged, or those who need to find that they can be satisfied in Him. That's what this is all about as well, that God promises to satisfy us, if not just if our priorities are right or if our hearts are completely pure, but that we're doing something that He would call in James as pure religion, right? To visit orphans and widows in their time of distress. He said this is pure and undefiled religion. And so there's a purity of motive there, a purity of heart, a singleness of intention that God wants to bless because He wants to satisfy. That's the biggest letdown so many times of our hearts and souls, is that we're trying to be satisfied with something less than God. And so as He calls the people out because of their fasting, because of their just doing something out of duty, He also provides an antidote to that. How that then we can share our bread, we can share with those who are hungry. And so he will pick this up in verse 7, Isaiah 58, verse 7. And he says, is it not to share your bread? This is the kind of fasting that God chooses. This is the kind of sacrifice or denying of self that God would choose. Not to just try to strong arm him or, get him to notice us. Because the things that we give, the things that we do, are not to get God to pay attention to us or just see our performance and then relate to us by that. We don't want to relate to God by performance or our tasks or just even sometimes the things that make for our religion or duty. And he says here in verse 7, is not this the kind of fast God has chosen? That's really the wording of verse 6, to loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free and break every yoke. And then he says, is it not to share your bread with the hungry, to bring the homeless and the poor into your house, and when you see the naked, to cover him, and not to hide yourself from your own flesh? So there's just something that God would have us to practically extend that we have, and even to our own loved ones, even to those who seem estranged or far off. He would say here to not turn away from your own flesh and blood. And sometimes that is a difficult thing to reach out and to just extend love to those who seem estranged or far off, or maybe there's unforgiveness, maybe there's something there that this time we can truly say, I'll do this as unto God. I'll extend this kindness, this loving kindness and mercy, so that they too might be satisfied. I mean, God has all of this for us to satisfy us deeply. And then he says in verse 8, then shall your light break forth like the dawn. Your healing will spring up speedily, and your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. I love that verse. I love verse 8, that rear guard or reward. That's the King James idea there, or wording is reward. How is it that we can be blessed beyond just being rewarded by God? Reward. But it speaks too of God having our back, right? That God will not overlook, or he, like we looked at last week, he's not unjust, like it says in Hebrews 6, to forget our works of love, and by which we minister to his saints and continue to minister. God is not unfair or unjust to forget us and forget the things that we've done for him. And even, as it were, things with the wrong motives, even as it were, sometimes things like fasting, where perhaps we wanted to earn favor with God, or so much so that we were desperate to say, God, I'll go without food, and I'll do it so that I can have a greater portion of you. Remember Mary and Martha, and they had Jesus over for dinner. Wouldn't that be great? Guess who's coming to dinner? Yeshu, Jesus. He's coming to dinner. How are we going to act? He's coming to dinner. What are we going to have? He's coming to dinner. We got to get cleaned up. He's coming to dinner. And it wasn't just when he came to dinner, it was when he was there. And so Martha was either trying to be pretty impressive, even just taking care of the things that were necessary, but then there was something, a greater portion, a more satisfying orientation and disposition, and that was that Mary was wanting to just come and be at his feet and be listening, be learning, be watching, attentive, right? Jesus is in her house. Not just how is he going to act, but he has a blessing. He has something to give, something to satisfy. They were wanting to lay out things before him, and especially Martha, lay out things for him to enjoy. But you can never, ever outgive God, and he's going to satisfy us deeply. And so he will have our back. He will be our reward. So then, verse 9, you shall call and the Lord will answer you. You shall cry and he will say, here I am. You know, this is that sense of closeness and that sense of fellowship with God, friendship with God, where we know that what we have asked, we have received. That's what John said in 1 John, that we can have this confidence knowing that what we have asked for in prayer, he will answer. And this is just an extension of how he deeply satisfies us, just with the confirmation and the sense of his presence, and just that there's no good thing that God will withhold from those who walk uprightly, from those who seek uprightness, those who endeavor to and long for his righteousness, right? And that being the thing that we present to God, just a heart. That's it. He won't turn that away. That's not going to be sitting in a sun-scorched land. And I know I'm probably jumping ahead, but that's one of the key verses here. Let me get to it. So he says, if you take away the yoke from your midst, and pointing of the finger and just speaking idly, speaking wicked things about others, if you pour yourself out for the hungry, satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will rise in the darkness, and then will your gloom be as the noonday. So, it's assuming too that, there's times, there's patterns, there's seasons that, we are depressed, that depression is a very real thing. And here he says, this is an antidote for that even, that sometimes it's our own way that we come to God and stay there. It's sometimes how we just believe that he won't satisfy us, and there's doubt there, and it settles in on us, and oppression. And he says here's how the darkness and gloom can be turned to the noonday sun, by not turning away from those who are needy and those who have a longing, but their longing is misplaced. Their longing is not in the person of Christ. He wants to deeply satisfy and guide. This is exactly what verse 11 says. Guide you continually, guide us with his eye, not with a bit and bridle, not with having to pull us and yank us like on a leash, but there it is, satisfy your desire in a sun-scorched, in a sun-bleached desert type of situation, right? To make our bones strong, those things that would weaken us, and even that being sometimes depression and oppression, it weakens the body. It weakens the mind, and yet God wants to satisfy and water and provide light to break forth, and satisfaction in these desert places. And so that's always where we'll end up, when it is just us ignoring the things that are pure and undefiled to God. We come back to that, and we just say, here's what I can offer. Here's what I can extend, is to extend it to others, right? That form of righteousness that reaches outward, because we're connected to the upper. We've got the upright, we've got the inright, we've got the downright. And so therefore we can reach out, and we can extend that to the poor too. We can say, here's a table God has prepared in the presence of his enemies, that our cup can overflow, that surely goodness and mercy are going to follow us. Surely goodness and mercy will be extended all the days of our life. Surely he will be our reward, our rear guard. He has our back. It will be extended all the days of our life. This is not a one-time offer. This is not a window of opportunity. This is a door. He is a door. And that door is opened through his light. Remember the light that breaks forth in the darkness. And it says, verse 12, your ancient ruins will be rebuilt. You'll raise up the foundations of many generations. You'll be called a repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. And to be that person who stands in the gap, the repairer of the breach, the place where there's an opening and it needs to be protected. A sheepfold had essentially 3 walls, and on the one side, the small narrow opening on the 4th side would be protected by a shepherd, would be protected by his very presence, would be protected so that nothing could get in and nothing could get out. And this is the repairer of the breach. He is the repairer. He is the restorer of streets to dwell in. And this is where we want to dwell. This is where we don't want our foot to slip. This is where we can stand and stand in his might and in his strength alone. And so I hope this, though maybe not a Christmassy message, just encourages you that God is a champion for the oppressed and the afflicted and the lonely and those who are depressed. He doesn't just leave us in that place. God comes to rescue us, to be our hero, to be the one who dwells with us and restores those places where we walk, restores deeply for many generations, those places where there is a breach, there's an opening. God bless you.